So as we discussed, Docker can be installed. Docker can be installed in any operating system. Docker can be installed in any operating system, even Linux. Docker can be installed in any operating system. So you can install in Windows. If required, you can install in Mac. And but in real time, most we will be using Linux servers. In real time, most of the scenarios we will be using Linux servers to host our applications. Docker comes with two versions: Docker Community Edition and Docker Enterprise Edition. So Docker Community Edition, there is a limitation for Red Hat. We can install in most of the Linux distributions. Except Red Hat. We can install Docker Community Edition in most of the Linux distributions except Red Hat. Officially, there is no support for Docker Community Edition from Red Hat and also from Docker. And also from Docker. Officially, there is no support for Community Edition because Red Hat is a enterprise Linux, so they are not supporting Community Edition. But Enterprise Edition, we can install in Red Hat also. It supports Red Hat also. So if you want to install Community Edition in Red Hat, you can install, but there is no official support, right? So we will be practicing with Ubuntu servers, or you want to practice, we can use Amazon Linux. Amazon Linux also. If you want to use, you can use CentOS. Community Edition. If you want to install in Windows, also you can install. If you want to install in Mac, also you can install. If you want to practice locally in your laptops, you can install in Windows, you can install in Mac. But anyhow, we will be using Linux servers, so I will be showing with Ubuntu servers. Or if you want to use Amazon Linux, also we can use Amazon Linux to install Docker, and we will deploy our applications in those servers. So whoever want to install in their Windows laptop, we can download and install from this link. But if you see guys, the prerequisite, it should be Windows 10 64-bit server, laptop. Enterprise edition or home edition also will work. Okay. But Hyper-V should be enabled. Hyper-V virtualization should be enabled to install Windows for, Docker for Windows. Okay. So if you want to download, this is the official link. So this is my Docker Hub username. I am logging into Docker Hub. So I am sharing the link. So using this link, you can download and install in Windows. And if you want to download for Mac, so you can download for Mac and you can install using this link. For now, what I will do, I will try to show it in how to do in AWS, Linux servers. Hope everyone has AWS account. So let's log into AWS servers, AWS console. So I will be creating an instance. Docker Community Edition, we cannot install in Red Hat. There is no official support. If you want to still install, there is a hack, but there is no official support from Docker as well as Red Hat for Community Edition. So if you want to install, we can install in Ubuntu servers. We will install in Ubuntu servers, or if you want to install, we can install in Amazon Linux. We can install in Amazon Linux also. So for now, let me use Ubuntu server. For practicing purpose, this t2.micro is sufficient. We can install and we can create containers, but we cannot create more containers. So for practicing purpose, let's create a t2.micro servers. This is my Docker server. Community edition, it is not at all sufficient in real time. Community edition is not at all sufficient in real time. It hardly comes with 1 GB RAM and 1 core processor, right? So in real time, we will have to create a lot of containers. In real time, you have to create a lot of containers, lot of applications you have to deploy. So in real time, you will be having very high configuration servers where we will install Docker, we will deploy our applications. So let's connect to this server. Guys, Ubuntu servers username is Ubuntu, not EC2. Okay, when you create a Ubuntu servers in AWS, when you create a Ubuntu servers in AWS, when you create a servers in Ubuntu Linux, right? Username is Ubuntu, not the EC2 user. So try to log in with that username, Ubuntu user, not the EC2 for Ubuntu servers. Default user name in AWS is Ubuntu. So let's log into this. So this is my Linux machine where I want to deploy or build some Docker applications. So if you see, we don't have a Docker software by default. Docker, if you execute Docker info, you will see there is no Docker software installed in this machine. If required, you can install using package manager. If required, you can install using package manager, or you can install using some script. So what is package manager for Ubuntu servers? What is a package manager for Ubuntu servers? Right? It's apt, not yum. Okay, maybe you guys are using so far Red Hat servers and you guys are using yum package manager to install the packages. For Ubuntu servers, package manager is apt. Is apt. Okay, so you can install using something like this sudo apt install docker. We are installing community edition. We don't need any licensing. If you want to install enterprise edition, yes, we need to, you know, purchase a license from Docker. We need to get a license from Docker if you want to install enterprise edition. So now we will be installing community edition. So you don't need any license to be purchased. So you can install using package manager, or there is a script. Docker has provided one script. Docker has written one shell script. If you see, they have written one shell script. So they have written a shell script in such a way that it will identify the underlying OS, what type of OS you are using. Based on that OS, it will execute the commands to install the Docker software. So we can execute using this script also. If you see, you can get the script and save it as one shell script and you can execute. So this works for most of the OS, but except Red Hat. If you try to execute this script in Red Hat, right, you will see the message Docker Community Edition cannot be installed on Red Hat. If you execute the same script, right, it will show that Docker Community Edition cannot be installed on the Red Hat. So you can use this one. You can use this way. You can use something like this. If you want to install, maybe this, you can save it as a script and you can execute that script. If you are getting permission issues, you can execute sudo. So for now, let me install using package manager. So first update the package manager. Update the package manager and install the Docker. Let me install Docker now. Guys, if you are familiar with like Red Hat servers and apt yum package manager, if you want to practice, you can practice in Amazon Linux also. Suppose if you are familiar with yum package manager and you are like familiar with Red Hat machines, if you are familiar with the Red Hat machines and if you are familiar with yum package managers, so instead of Ubuntu Linux, you can use Amazon Linux. Just wherever it is, Docker concept remains same. It is irrespective of the operating system. Docker concept remains same. Let me show that as well. So if you want to create Amazon Linux, maybe you can take this second one. Amazon Linux server. So if you want to, you are familiar with Red Hat and if you want to install, right? So you can use the second one. First one, basically some additional softwares will come, right? OS, if you select the first one, additional softwares will come. So let's connect to this. If you see here the description, right? It is 64-bit SSD volume type. This is also SSD volume type, right? If you see, there might be some additional softwares will come. The AMI will have, AMI is different, that's it. So now if you want to install in this Amazon Linux, for Amazon Linux the default username is EC2. If you see, the default username is EC2. For Amazon Linux the default username is EC2. You can use that one. Now M is a package manager for this. M is a package manager for this. If you see Docker is not there, here you can use sudo yum install. Sudo yum install Docker. So if you see now, Docker is installed here. Now if you see, as a normal user we are executing. As a normal user, we are executing Docker commands. You will get this error. What is the meaning of this error? If you see, lot of times people come with come to me saying that, sir, I am getting this error. Cannot connect to Docker daemon, right? So Docker we have installed. When I execute Docker commands, I am getting this error. Not only that command, if I want to see something like this, Docker images or Docker container, Docker containers. So Docker is installed. We are getting that error because of the permissions. Because of the permissions, right? So we don't have a permissions to execute. You don't have a permissions to execute. Docker commands as a normal user. You have to use sudo, or I don't want to use sudo always. If you see, here by default it is not running. So by default it is not running. Let me start this. Docker daemon is not started here by default. Guys, please be on mute. I get lot of background noise. Sudo systemctl restart Docker. Systemctl is not recognized. Service also unrecognized. Right, service is not there. Sorry. So sudo service Docker start. So by default, Docker is not started. Now I started. Now if I execute, if you see, still we are getting permission denied. Docker is running. You can check the status. Sudo service Docker status. Docker is running. But if you see, why we are getting still permission issue? Because as a normal user, I am executing the commands. So if I execute with this permissions, sudo permissions, I can see. We just installed Docker. So it is saying the details. Do I have any images as of now in this Docker server? Do I have any images? Just now we install the Docker, we don't have any images, we don't have any containers, right? And it is displaying the architecture like the Docker information. And if you see, what is the Docker root directory, guys? If you see here, what is the Docker root directory? I mean to say Docker working directory. Here, if you see, varlib Docker, this is the Docker working directory or Docker root directory. So if you want to install in Amazon Linux, you can install in Amazon Linux. If you are familiar with the Red Hat systems and if you want to use, you can use Amazon Linux, or you can go with Ubuntu servers. Now here also we install Docker. Here also same. Docker service is running. Here Docker service is running. Docker services. I think here also it's not started by default. Let me start. Sudo service Docker start. Now Docker is running here. Now here also if you see, we'll get same issue. As a normal user, if you execute, as a normal user you execute, you will get this one. With root permissions, if you execute, you will get the details. So whether it's a Ubuntu server or as a, CentOS server or Amazon Linux, this is the Docker working directory, Docker root directory. So this operating system is this. This is the kernel version here. Now this is having one core CPU, the server. This is memory available here. So what size is required in real time, right? What size is required in real time, that is depends on your application, guys. What type of instance? Instance type is what type of instance you need in real time. That is depends on your application, right? Docker Enterprise Edition also I can install in one, like 1 GB RAM and one core CPU. But in real time, which one we will use? That is depends on our requirement. How many containers you want to deploy? How many applications you want to run, right? If you ask me, in my project, we have in my production 128 GB RAM and 64 core processor servers. 128 GB RAM and 64 core processor. Again, how many servers we have? We have total 13 servers in my current project. Total 13 Docker servers in production only. Each server capacity is this much. And out of this, 3 managers, 10 workers. What is manager, what is worker? We will understand in a Docker swarm. First, we are learning the Docker concepts. Then we will understand what is Docker swarm, why we need Docker swarm. So why managers? What is the role of managers? Right? We will discuss in subsequent classes. But if you ask me, in my current project, total we have 13 servers in production only, production environment, 13 Docker servers. Each server capacity is this much. Why? Why these many servers? Right? Why these many servers? If you ask the question, because that is depends on my project, how many microservices I want to deploy, how many containers I have to run for my project. So I have a lot of applications to be deployed. If lot of applications to be deployed, so we are having these many servers. That we will understand in detail in the subsequent session. But definitely not 1 GB RAM and 1 core processor. Okay. So as a normal user, I don't have a permissions to execute. So what I can do? I can use sudo, but I don't want to use sudo all the time. Add user to the Docker group. When we install Docker, there will be a group called Docker created. So you need to add this user to the Docker group, so that he will have a permissions to execute the Docker commands. So what command you used? Like what command can be used to add the user to the group? Linux commands. So I am adding user to the group. Group is Docker. Username is this one, or you can use $user. So now we have added, but it will not reflect the permissions in the same session. It will not reflect the permissions in the same SSH session, right? Even though you added user, $user is basically the current user. What is the current user? Ubuntu. So $user is basically a current user. So we added Ubuntu user to the Docker group. Still we get the same issues. Let me relaunch SSH session. I exited from that SSH session. Let me log in again. Now I have a permissions to execute without sudo. If you see, I have a permissions to execute the Docker commands without sudo. Now we have a Docker server. Now what are the Docker components? Yesterday we discussed Docker file, Docker image. These are the core Docker containers. We can create a containers. But if I want to create a container, what do I need? If I want to create a container, what do I need? I need an image. If I need to create an image, I should have created image already. If you see the flow, Docker flow, from the Docker file, we will be creating an image. This image I can share with others by maintaining in the repositories. This image I can share with others by moving this image to the repositories, Docker repositories. And wherever I want to deploy, I can create a container out of that image. So from Docker file, you need to create an image, from image to the container. And yesterday we discussed this Docker architecture, right? We have a client and we have a host. Now if you see in this server itself, I installed Docker, client software is here, and server software also in the same machine. I mean to say, in the same machine we have a client and server Docker, Docker client and Docker daemon, basically Docker server. In the same machine, I have a Docker CLI and server Docker daemon also. So whatever commands I am executing here, whatever commands we are executing, the request goes to Docker daemon. That is one software which is running. Docker daemon. So there will be a Docker process which will be running in this server. If I stop the Docker process, will it work? Whatever commands I am executing now, Docker process is running. Docker D. If you see the Docker daemon, Docker D is nothing but a Docker daemon. So Docker process is running. If I stop this process, sudo service. Now if you see, let me reverse this case. Sudo Docker, sudo service Docker status. If you see, it is running. It is running. Now if I stop this one, if I stop this one, if I stop this one, so if I stop this one, now Docker daemon is running. Whatever commands I am executing, is it working? The CLI. The CLI, the commands is trying to invoke, talk to the Docker daemon, that process. Do you see, is it working? Now my Docker daemon is not running, Docker process. If you see, none of the commands will work. That is because we stop the process. If you see, it is inactive. So now let me start once again. So now I can execute the Docker commands and it is interacting with the Docker daemon. And it is, we can create a images or we can create a containers. Now, suppose your requirement is you want to Dockerize this application. There is one Java based application. There is a Java based web application. Let's assume this is one of the application. Dockerization or containerization. Suppose the requirement is you have to Dockerize this application. What is the meaning of Dockerization or containerization? We have to create a container. We have to deploy this application as a container. So the requirement is we have to Dockerize this application or containerize this application. So far, how we used to deploy this application, guys? So far, how we used to deploy this application? Are we deploying this application as a container? Are we deploying this application as a container? No. What we used to do? We used to clone this project. We used to clone this project. Build process. As part of build process, what we used to do? We used to clone this one. Whatever, Maven clean package. If you want to do sonar scan, whatever you have done. So this generates what? This generates application package. This generates application package. Now, as part of deployment process, what we used to do? We used to just take this package. We used to take this package, whatever package it got generated. Under target, we used to get one package, var file, some name. As part of deployment process, in your deployment server, we used to deploy this application. But can I deploy this var file without installing the required softwares, the dependencies, runtime? In my deployment process, we install Java, we install Tomcat, runtime for my application. Then we deployed our application. This is what we used to do so far. Now, the requirement is we have to Dockerize this application. What is the meaning of Dockerization? We need to deploy our application as a container. So now we generated an application package. Then what is the process now? I have an application package. Now if I want to Dockerize this one, what we need to do? We need to create as part of your build process. We are going to create. What do we need to create as part of your build process? We need to create an image. Create Docker image. You need to create a Docker image. So now, what this image should have? Take this project only. Take this project only. We are creating image. This image should have what? This image should have what basically? Application package. What is my application package here in this case? var file. In this case, it's a var file. In this case, it's a var file. Then, if I have only var file, will it work? Var file. What is required for my var file to run? What is the runtime for this application? Dependency softwares. Dependency softwares. What dependency software? Suppose I can go with Tomcat. Can we have a Tomcat without Java? Can we have a Tomcat without Java? We need Java. We need to create an image. We need to create an image. That image should have all these things. We need to create an image. The image should have all these things. So how can I create an image? Where should I give instructions? Okay, I need Java, I need Tomcat, and copy this var file to the image. How can I create an image? Right? Where can I mention my image should have all these things? That is from the Docker file. That is from the Docker file. You need to write a Docker file. From Docker file, you can create an image. Now the ask is here. You want to Dockerize this application. Now, do you see Docker file as part of your source code? Do you see Docker file as part of your source code now? Docker file is also one of the source code. So we need to write a Docker file. We need to write a Docker file. Suppose I want to build Docker image for this application. We need to write a Docker file. So let me show that how to write a Docker file, right? This is the name, guys, the default name. So I need a Tomcat software because my runtime for this application is Tomcat. So do I need to build Tomcat image from the scratch, or I can get the image from Docker Hub? Do I need to create a Tomcat image from the scratch? We can get from the Docker Hub. Already image is available in the Docker Hub. So you have a hub.docker.com. This is my image. Guys, if I directly create a container from that image, suppose I can create directly container from that image here. I can execute Docker run. I will come to this option. What is -d? Detached mode. I can give some name. I will come to this in a short time. What is -p? What is -d? Hyphen name is nothing but name. You are giving a name for a container. I can directly create a, this is my image name, Tomcat image. If I create a container out of this image, container will be there. But what will be running inside that container? Tomcat will be running. But do we have our application in that container? I can directly create a container from this image. Now, I can directly create a container from this image, Tomcat image. Container will be running. Inside the container, Tomcat will be running. But do we have our application inside that container? No. Then how do we deploy our application? The way we deployed, like, are we going to copy your var file to the container? The way you are copying the var file to the servers, Tomcat servers, initially, whatever you have done, are we going to do this way? Like you create a container from this image, then you copy your var file. Are we going to perform in this way? No. So we need to create an image. That image should have, the image itself should have, the image itself should have an application plus your runtime. You need to create an image. That image should itself have an application plus your runtime. So that wherever I create a container, from that image, our application will be up and running. So we call these images as a base images. I can use this one as a base. I will write my own Docker file. I will write my own Docker file for that project. In detail, we will discuss what is from. Now I can say from Tomcat. Again, Tomcat image has a lot of versions, guys. These are the versions like Tomcat 8.0 something, right? 7.0 something, something like this. So these are the versions of your Tomcat image versions. If I want to use specific version of the Tomcat image, I can use this version. This is image version. I can use something like this. Tomcat 7. This represents version. After this version or tag. If I want to deploy in JBus, I can deploy in JBoss also. There is a image for that one. I want to use JBoss. Right? JBoss. This image is also there. JBoss is again application server where we can deploy our WAR files or EAR files. Right? I can use this image also. I can run in Tomcat. Again, Tomcat, you have some versions, something like this. Whatever version you want to use, you can use something. If I want to use 8, I can use 8, something like this. Guys, if I don't mention version, the Docker is very, in the, if I don't mention this, if I don't mention this version or tag, this we call it as a version or tag. If I don't mention what version it will take, guys, if I don't mention just a Tomcat, it will take this, it will take it as this colon latest. It will take it as colon latest if I don't mention. So for now, maybe let me use whatever I want to use, maybe Tomcat 7 or 8. This is my Docker file. I am saying from Tomcat 8. What is this? This is image, base image. What I am going to get from this base image, guys? What I am going to get from this base image? I will be getting Tomcat software plus Java software and the container runtime. Container also will have a runtime OS, lightweight OS, but it is not the full-fledged OS. So this is also one image. Who created this image? Who created this image and who are maintaining this image? Basically, the official Tomcat. This image also they have created. This image also they have created using. This image also they have created using some Docker file. If you see, I am using Tomcat 7 or 8. Right? If you see, if I click on this, they will show the Docker file which they used. And if you see, this is their Docker file. This is base image Docker file. Again, they are using another base. What is this? Why they are using? Again, OpenJDK. This is the Docker file of Tomcat image. Why they are again using JDK8? Because Tomcat is depends on what? Tomcat requires Java. So they are using Java base image. On top of Java base image, we will discuss what is env, what is work dir. You no need to worry. Right? Later we will discuss. On top of Java, they created one image that has a Tomcat. That has a Tomcat software. So now I am using this one. So I'm going to get Tomcat software plus Java software and everything. And then this is my base. On top of this, what I need to do, guys? Now I am getting Tomcat plus Java. On top of this, what should I have as part of my own image? We should have a var file. So another instruction, copy. What I want to copy? I want to copy my var file, which is there inside this. Something which is generated as part of this one var file. Where I want to copy? This is my source. In my build process, we are doing this. Where I have to copy? I have to copy to the web apps folder. Where is web apps? Where is Tomcat? Inside this base. Inside this base image, we have a Tomcat, right? So I'm going to copy something like this. Something like this. Sir, how will I come to know? In the base image, this is where they have Tomcat. In this base image, how will I come to know? Within this path, I have a Tomcat. Web apps. Okay. How will I come to know? In the base image, this is my base image. I am getting Tomcat software. How will I come to know? Within this path, I have a Tomcat. You can check the official document. If you go through, what they are saying, guys? Catalina home, Tomcat home directory. What they are saying? In this image, what is the Tomcat home directory? User local Tomcat. So basically in Tomcat, where should you have your var file so that it will be deployed? In Tomcat, where should I have our var file so that it will be deployed? In the web apps folder. So user local Tomcat web apps. So this is my Docker file. Now this is my Docker file. Now if I create an image from this Docker file, if I create a Docker build is basically we are creating an image. This is my image name. This is my image name. So if I create a Docker image from this Docker file, what my image will have, what this image will have, whatever image I am creating from this Docker file, if I create an image, what this image will have, what this image will have, whatever we are going to create, this image will have what and all things, guys? We are creating our own image. We will have a Tomcat as well as our application. If I deploy this image as a container, do we have our application? If I deploy this image as a container, right? So wherever I want to deploy, I can deploy. So now let's build the image. Let's build the image. For our application, we are going to build the image. Now this is my source code. This is my source code for this project. Where is this? This is my source code. In build process, I have a source code. I have a source code. So I have a source code. I have a build script, right? I have a Jenkins file, but I don't have a Docker file. I don't have a Docker file. If you say I went inside that project, I don't have a Docker file. Suppose if I want to Dockerize, don't I need a Docker file? If I want to create this application, if I want to deploy this project as a Docker container, you need a Docker file. So I'm going to write a Docker file. I'm going to create a Docker file. What is the default name of Docker file? What is the default name of Docker file? This is the default name of Docker file. It is also source code. So I'm trying to have something like this. So I'm using Tomcat 8 base image, and we are trying to source our application package, we are copying to the this base image has Tomcat, so we are copying here. So Java is part of your Tomcat itself. I shown that already, right? If you see, Tomcat image is again depends on, if you see Tomcat image is again using Java. We are depending on Java. We are using we are using Tomcat. Tomcat is again downloading internally. The Tomcat image itself will have a Java. Guys, image is nothing but a layers, multiple layers. Layers of Docker image is basically a layered architecture. Docker image is basically a layered architecture. We will discuss in a separate session, but we are creating one image. That image is depends on another. So we are creating image, right? The top layer is basically our application code is there, our var file. This is top layer. It's a layer. And we are using Tomcat. Tomcat is again depends on lot of other Java. Like it's a layered architecture. The Java might be depends on other. Like container runtime, like not full-fledged OS. Okay. Now, this is one layer. All these are just read-only layers. Image is basically a layered architecture, like multiple layers. In my Docker file, in our Docker file, what we told? We told from Tomcat it and copy our var file. So to the so this one. So this is depends on lot of other stuff. Tomcat depends on Java, Java depends on something else. Basically, image is nothing but a layered architecture. Finally, my image will have all these layers. Wherever I will deploy that image, my application will be deployed. So now I created a Docker file. I have a Docker file also now. I have a source code. But did I generated my application package? Can I directly create a Docker image? If you see in my Docker file, I am trying to copy my application package. But did I generated my application package? Did I generated my application package? No. If I execute Docker build, now I am trying to create an image. Guys, now I am inside my project. I am inside my project. So where I am executing my Docker command, build command in my project path. Sir, what is this? You are giving Docker hands-on. What is this? Docker build we will use to build an image. Docker build we will use to build an image. What is -t here? I am creating an image. I am tagging that image with this. I am tagging the image with this, right? What is this? I am tagging with this. What is this? Docker hands-on. And this one is a repository. I created one account, right, in Docker Hub. This is my repository, my username. Inside that, this. What is this? Colon. What is the last after colon? We call it as a tag or version. What is this? Version of our image. Version of our image. So what dot represents? Here if you say, I am saying dot. What dot represents? Current directory. Basically Docker build context. Docker build context. What is the meaning of here? I am saying build the Docker image from the current folder. Because the current folder, I have my application package. So it is going to process, it is going to create a Docker image from that Docker build context, current folder. And I am using default name Docker file. So that's why I no need to mention a -f. I no need to mention -f file name. In the interviews, they may ask, can we have a Docker file with a different name? Can we have a Docker file with a different name? Instead of this, can we have a Docker file with other names? Yes, we can have, but I need to use what option while creating an image? I need to use -f, that file name, whatever custom name. Now I am using default name, I no need to mention -f. Now let's see, our image creation will fail. What Docker is doing first, it is downloading the base image. Guys, what are these? If you see, in the Docker terminology, what we call it? Layers. Layers. This is my base image. It is downloading the base image. This is my base image. It has downloaded the base image, all the layers. Now, is my image creation is successful, guys? If you see, is my image is successfully created? If you see, it, which step it is failed? Which step it is failed? Second step, because var file is not available. If you see, do I have a, this is my Docker file. I am saying copy from the target folder. This is my var file. But do I have a var file generated for this application? No. So now in this server, I have only Docker installed. In this server, I have only Docker installed. Will I able to build my application? Docker I am using to create an image, but before creating an image, I have my application package. I need to have my application package. Before creating my Docker image for my Java project, first I need to have my application. My application, package. So we don't have application package. So we are generating application package. Guys, you can install using this command. So this will install Java also. Using package manager, you can install. So Maven is depends on Java. So the apt will install Java also. I'm just executing this. So now Java and Maven is getting installed in this server. Now let me first create a package, application package. Sorry. So since we are doing build for the first time, Maven concept. What Maven is doing, guys? Since we are building this application for the first time, our application package, what Maven is doing, it is downloading all the Maven dependencies, to generate this application package. Now it has generated my application package. Now Maven has generated my application package. Now do you see target folder inside the target? Do you see this? Now I have an application package. Now can I create a Docker image? Can I create a Docker image using this Docker file? If you see my Docker file, what I am saying? Tomcat, from Tomcat. Now I am going to, what star represents here after this, whatever it is. Regular expression. After this, whatever name it can be. Sometimes if you have like your versions, right? Whatever it might be. So let me create an image. What is the command to create image? Docker build -t. I want to move this image to repository so that I can share with anyone. So I'm tagging with my repository, public repository, and version I'm saying 1. So here version is basically why I am giving 1. This is Tomcat. Yes, this is Tomcat 8, Tomcat version 8. This is my application version. Since I am building for the first time, this version is my application version. This application image version. Here Tomcat 8 version. So now I'm trying to build. Dot represents current build, current directory, Docker build context. Now, is my image created successfully? Now, how to see the images? What command I can use? Now, in this server, I see 2 images. This image and this image. This image I have not built, but what happened when I am creating this image got downloaded. This is base image. This is base image. Now, if you see the difference, the base image is 553 MB, our image is 538 MB. What is there in additional in our image? Why there is a 5 MB difference is there in our image? This is my base image which I used, and we created our own image. What is there in that 5 MB? What is the difference? Our application. Now, if I create a container out of this image, does our application will be up and running in a container? If I create a container out of this image, does our application will be up and running in our container? Do we need to do anything? Suppose this application, let me show here. Let's assume this is my server. This is my build server. This is my build server. This is my build server. My source code is in GitHub. I have a source code. I have a palm.xml Java based project, and I have a I have to maintain Docker file also. As of now, we don't have a Docker file in GitHub, but I have created here. As part of your build process, what you have done? You cloned your project. You cloned your project. You executed maven clean package. Then you have created a Docker image. Repo with version. And a dot. There should be a space and a dot. This is your build server. What and all softwares I have installed in build server, guys? We installed Maven. We installed Docker also. And Maven installed Java also. Why I installed Maven and Java? Because I want to first create my application package. I want to create my application package in this server. So we installed Maven and Java. And we have a Docker. Why we install Docker? Because I want to create a Docker image. Now I have an image here. Now I have an image here, Docker image. So now this is my deployment server. This is my deployment server. This is my deployment server. Let's assume I want to deploy this. What software is required? Because you want to deploy a container, Docker image, Docker container. So you need a Docker software. Now I want to deploy this one. Do I need to install Java? Do I need to install Tomcat in my deployment server? Now I want to deploy this image, Docker image. This is my Docker image. This is my Docker image. Docker hands-on / maven web app version 1. So this image itself has now Tomcat plus application. Now in my deployment server, do I need to configure my deployment server to run this application? Not required. Now I can directly create a container. But how can I move this image from one place to another place? Now this is my build server. Let's assume this is my build server. This is my build server. In my build server, I have an image. Now, how can I move that image to my deployment server? Can I copy the image? Can I do the SCP? Can I do SCP the images as is from my build server to deployment server? Can I SCP? If I execute ls, do I see any file with this name anywhere? So now how can I move this image? What concept I can use? Now, repository. We are building Docker is a containerization platform. The definition using which we can build What is the next one, guys? We can ship and run containers. Now, how can I ship my image? We will use repositories concept. We will use repositories concept. So I have an image here. What I can do, I can push the image to the repository. I can push the image to the repository. Docker push that image name, complete name. So to which repository, it will push? How Docker knows to which repository it will push? Whether it is a private or public, how it will come to know? How will come to know? If you see, while creating image, what we have given? We have given a repository details also, right? While creating an image, we have given a repository details also. The image name itself has a repository details. The image name itself has a repository details. So whenever I am executing Docker push with that name, so it knows that it has to push to this repository. Basically, image name is nothing but a repository plus version. But can I push without authenticating with repository, even though it's a public repository, even though it's a Docker hub? Can I push the image to this repository without authenticating from this machine? Will I able to push this image to the repository without authenticating from this machine? We cannot push. Now let me show that. I have an image in this server. I have an image in this server. The image name itself has a repository details. This is my repository, my username, my application. And what is this version of my application? Now if I try to push, this is the command, docker push, docker hands-on / maven web app version 1. Now it is trying to push to the Docker hub, but what it is saying? Requested access to the resource is denied. Why it is denied? Because I have not authenticated with this repository. Even though it's a public repository, I need to authenticate. So how can I authenticate? There is a command we can execute, docker login. There is a command you can execute, docker login. You can give your username and your password. I am giving my username, my password. If I don't give -p, it will ask. So I authenticated. Login is successful. Now can I push? Now? I authenticated. Can I push now? So let me try to push. So I have pushed. If I go and check in my repository, hub.docker.com, and I already logged in. Now, do you see here, updated few seconds ago, Docker hands-on Maven web app? In the repository, version 1 image, If you see version 1 image, do you see? Just now I pushed. I created these images previously. Now if you see, just now I push the image. Now let's assume this is your deployment server. I have another Docker server, right? We installed Docker already. Let's assume this is your deployment server. This is my deployment server. Let's assume Docker deployment server. Now, do I need to install any software except Docker in this server to run my application? -t, this is my repository name. Docker Hub username. This is my Docker Hub username. Like just I have given Docker hands-on. That is my username. Suppose yesterday you created, right? With one account, you give your name, maybe something like this. Upendra might have created one Docker Hub, user, right? Docker Hub account. So whenever you guys are practicing, wherever you see a Docker hands-on, try to replace that with your username. Wherever you see, while creating or while pushing or while pulling, wherever you see Docker hands-on, try to use your repository, because you cannot push to my repository. I will not share my credentials, right? So -t tag. -t tag. I think I already explained what is -t tag. Not only username, -t tag repo URL, repo details, your repository details. Okay, that can be private repository or public repository. So now this is my deployment server. Here, let me connect to this server. So this is my deployment server. I just have a Docker. I don't have, okay, again permissions, sudo user mod -ag Docker. So now I just have a Docker. If you see, I don't have Java in this system. Java is not there. I think by default Java is there, but you can ignore this. We are not going to use, and we don't have a Tomcat. I have not downloaded Tomcat. Tomcat is not up and running, right? By default, I think this AMI has a Java. Now here, I am going to create a container. Name, container name, I can give anything. From this image, Docker hands-on maven web app version 1. From this image, where is this image? Do I have this image in this server locally as of now? In my deployment server, do I have this image locally? I have built in build server and I moved to repository. Now, do I have this image in this server locally? Do I have this image locally? From this image, I am trying to create a container, Docker run. I am trying to create a container. Do I have this image locally? No, right? If you want to see what is the command, do I have any images in deployment server? What we have done? In build server we have created. Now I push that image to the repository. Now in the repository it is there. Now I am trying to create a container in this server. What it does? It will pull the image. it will pull the image, then container will be created. So let me show that. Docker run, I will explain what is -d-p later. This is my container name, anything I can give from this image. Now since I am using public image, I no need to authenticate while pulling. Now it is saying unable to find this image locally. But what it is doing? This image is not there locally, but what it is doing? It is creating a container. Now you guys also try to execute this command in your servers. If you are already installed, you guys also try to execute this command in your servers. The application I am deployed. Now if you see, I have one container. If you see, I have one container in this server. In the deployment server, I have one container. What is there inside this container? What is running inside this container now? Tomcat plus our application. Tomcat plus our application. I have not installed Java. I have not installed Tomcat. I have not copied my WAR file. But how come my application is running? That is because the image itself has everything. This image itself has everything. From this image, we created a container. Now, let me open the port. Let me open the port here in the AWS. Let me open the port in the AWS security group. 8080. Okay. So now, if you see, I will be able to access the application. 8080 slash maven web application. This is my WAR file name, right? Application context. Do you see? It is up and running. My application is running as a container now. If I required, I can create another container, right? If required, I can create another container. If something went wrong with other container, is there any impact on this container? No, right? Containerization. So tomorrow we'll try to discuss all the commands like image related commands, container related commands. Then we will dig into more details, Docker file instructions. In detail, we will discuss what is Docker file instructions. First, we will get familiarized with commands, image commands, container commands. Okay. So today for you, the assignment is create a Docker image for this project. For today, your assignment is you need to create a Docker image for this project. You don't have a Docker file, you need to write a Docker file. So assignment is Dockerize below application. So create a Docker. You don't have a Docker file, first create a Docker file. Create a Docker image for this application. Push the image to your Docker hub repo, and maybe container. If you want to create a container, you can create, otherwise you can leave it. If you want to deploy it as a container. Now, once you create, you ping me your image name. You ping me your image name, I will check. So this is the assignment for today. So we'll continue. Upendra, I'll come to that. How to change port number. Basically, you no need to change the port numbers. I will come to that tomorrow. I will explain tomorrow. Why do I need to change the port number? I can have n number of containers with same port. I will come to that tomorrow. So this is the assignment, guys. Try to complete this assignment. We'll continue tomorrow. So I have created one server where I installed Docker and I installed Maven also because I want to build my application package. In this server, I installed Maven, I installed Docker, I created an image in this server and I pushed to the repository. In this server, I deployed that image as a container. So that is what we have done. We'll continue tomorrow, guys. I am expecting you to complete this assignment, whatever I have shared, so that we'll continue tomorrow. If you have any questions, let me know. I have 1 or 2 minutes. Otherwise, we'll continue tomorrow. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the Skype group or WhatsApp group. Okay, so that I will try to respond you for your queries, guys. We are still learning the basics. Okay, what is image, what is container, what is repository. Slowly we'll try to understand the complex concepts like how to write Docker file, what is volumes, what is networks, what is compose, what is swarm. Slowly we'll understand. Okay, guys, if you don't have any other questions, we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you. We'll continue tomorrow, guys. Again, meeting ID will be changed for tomorrow. So let me know. I will share the meeting ID in the group, and whoever is not there in the group, let me know so that we will share personally. Thank you.